In today's video, I'm going to tell you how I feel about the Oklahoma Joe's Rider DLX versus the Pit Boss Pro Series 1100 pellet grill. Hey, this is Ricer from Dead Broke Barbecue, Wisconsin, and welcome back to the channel. But if you're new here, we try to help you enhance and amplify your backyard barbecue fun. And I am going to tell you right now, this video is a lot of fun. I talk about the pros and the cons of the Pit Boss versus the Oklahoma Joe's Rider DLX. Now, both of these cookers are really good, but there is a couple things that makes me pick one of them over the other. So grab that pencil and that notepad, Dickie. I'm gonna tell you which one of these pellet grills I like best. All right, so I've been asked this question so many times, I figured I might as well do a video on it for all of you to watch. And I'm gonna try to tell you all of my experiences and what I feel that I like the most and the least about both of these brands. And I'm just trying to help you decide if you want the Pit Boss Pro Series 1100 or you're gonna end up going with the Oklahoma Joe's Rider DLX. Now, I consider both of these pellet grills entry level. And when I've said this before in the past, some people are like, what? Entry level? I paid around $600 for it. Yep, you paid $600. But if you start looking at like the Smoke Daddies, the Pits and Spits, the Yoders, and even Traeger, you're starting to talk about thousands of dollars spent and not just hundreds. Now, both of these cookers use what I call an algorithm controller. When you set this cooker at a certain desired temperature, when the temperature probe reads that it's not at that level, it just does a certain amount of revolutions to keep it at that cooking temp. Because an algorithm temperature controller just reads if it's at that temperature or if it's not. And if it's not, it just goes ahead and dumps a bunch of pellets in, and once it reaches that temperature, the auger just stops. There's no actual cruise control on these algorithm style of controllers. And I actually got that cruise control term from my good friend Andrew from Anderson's Smoke Show. Go ahead and check out the card above. He does a lot of cooks on really cool cookers himself. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about some of the pros and cons about the Rider DLX and the Pit Boss. Now, my biggest pro for this Pit Boss is the hopper size. You can actually go all night long and not have to worry about it. Now, the hopper on the Rider DLX is pretty small, but it still can do your basic cook. You know, every couple hours I check anyways, but you'll notice that this one is empty. And why is it empty? It's because I've had an actual auger jam on the Rider DLX. So after that happened, I got in the habit of always making sure that I dumped my pellets on every single cook. But now to dump the pellets on the Rider, it's just as simple as pulling this lever and have your bucket underneath there, and it takes nothing. Now on the Pit Boss, it's a lot bigger task. You gotta take this off and pull that little drain out and have a bucket underneath there to catch them. As far as the hoppers go, I'm gonna give it to the Pit Boss because number one, it's bigger. Number two, I've never had an auger jam. And number three, when I have to go ahead and dump it out of the Rider, it adds about 30 minutes extra time whenever I use it. It's 15 extra minutes for the cool down because you burn out that whole tube. And number two, it takes about 15 minutes to get it going. Now let's go ahead and talk about the cooking chambers between the two. The Rider, like 1,200 square inches, and the Pit Boss, 1,100 square inches. Now here's where I start to feel that the Rider actually is better than the Pit Boss, and it's the cooking chamber itself. It's got the bottom full shelf and then two, let's say 2/3 shelves. Now let's just talk about the whole sear zone. The Rider, that thing is massive and it gets hotter than the Pit Boss, which is another bonus for the Rider. And honestly, I don't actually use the sear part of it a lot. I just actually open it up for a little bit and let it kiss that protein just to give it more of a crispier outside crunch. Now, I've been asked this question so many times, it's unbelievable. But the people have asked, hey, did your paint actually peel? No, it didn't. It's actually stayed right on. Now there's a little bit of discoloration right here, but that's just because, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't spend a tremendous amount of time cleaning this one anymore, just because I don't put it on video. But that's just a little bit of surface garbage. Now another thing that I really like is that you have a fair amount of cooking space in there. You got about 1,100 square inches. Number three is it has a front shelf on it. Now I am not particularly impressed with the grooves that are in this with the Pit Boss. It's very hard to clean. You got to take it off to actually clean it really good. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Now on the Pit Boss, it has this goofy little slotted plate that sits on top, and you got this handle here that you go ahead and push in to open it up. Well, I've tried to sear on that thing. It's not the greatest. You can't get much on it. Another thing that I like about the Rider is actually how easy it is to clean up compared to the Pit Boss. All you got to do is go ahead and take out those couple grates, and underneath that grate is the heat deflector. It's really simple. Plus you got this little ash cap that you just take off, and once you have that opening up, you might have to go ahead, poke inside the fire pot a little bit to break up some of the greasy ash debris, but it all comes out. And down here you can see, after 2 or 3 cooks, I just take a putty knife and just scrape it up a little bit. Pretty simple. But now if you have to get into the fire pot, it's a little bit trickier because you got to go ahead and take this 304 stainless out. And the Rider also has some decent cast iron grates on the bottom, but they do crack. Now I have seen that Oklahoma Joe's went ahead and made a new style, and they're not having that problem anymore. When you start looking at that honeycomb design, you can understand why they're cracking. Now on the Pit Boss, their racks, I hate this porcelain coated crap. It sucks. It's really hard to clean. I have to take them off and hit them with a pressure washer once in a while, and that's really the only way you can deep clean them. I wish all these companies would just go ahead and put in some stainless steel grates. Done, simple, good enough. Now on the Pit Boss, you got to start taking all these individual racks out to get it cleaned up. No different than on the Rider. And then of course you got to go ahead and take out your heat deflector. Take out this handle, take out your top shelf, and go ahead, grab the heat deflector, wiggle that around until you get it out. And it comes out in one big unit, and then you can go ahead and clean out that. Plus, there's some other parts in there. You got this piece of tin that sits over the top. So this is what it looks like when you get everything out. Now, this is a little dirty, but I've ran 2 cooks on it, 2 long cooks, some pork butts, and I did some ribs on it. Now there's also been hundreds of cooks on that Pit Boss. So overall, it's looking pretty good after a year and a couple months use. Now with the Rider, they give you this cool little tool so you can grab these bottom grates out. Come out pretty simple. And you can grab your side shelves. Now this tool is kind of nice because you don't have to get so dirty. But I always wear gloves when I'm cleaning out the grills anyways. Now this is your heat deflector, and a lot of people have asked me, don't you get flare-ups because there's holes on there? No, I actually have never had a flare-up on the Rider DLX. Never. Now I have had a couple grease fires in the Pit Boss, but that was mainly because they were long, low, and slow, big cooks. But it did happen, and I think it's because when it's riding down that deflector plate, it started pulling up off of that sear plate or something, and it caught on fire. Now as far as the cooking chamber and how they're both designed, I actually like the Oklahoma Joe's Rider a lot more. And the main reason is because I like that it has 3 levels of cooking area in this. I like how they built it up. Heat rises, right? So most of the time I can just go ahead and load it up, rotate it a couple times, and it's done. But on the Pit Boss, I'm always rotating. I'm always making sure that every half an hour to hour that these pieces of protein are moving to a different spot so they all kind of end up being finished at the same time. So for the cooking chamber, I'm going to give it to the Rider DLX. I just like that it has 3 levels of cooking. It just is easier and it's more compact and it's right on top of each other. And as far as the cleanup, it's about a horse apiece. A little bit harder to get the heat deflector out. You get a little bit dirtier because you don't have a fancy tool to pull the racks off like you do on the Rider DLX. But honestly, I'm not a big fan of both cookers' bottom grates. They're okay, they do the job, but I still am gonna go back to just some straight stainless steel cooking racks. Now another question I get asked a lot is about smoking flavor. Well, they're both pellet grills. They're both gonna be lighter on that smoke flavor, but they both do a pretty good job. Now I have actually ran, wait a minute, I got a fly. Where are you? Come here. There you are. Yeah, awesome, got him. I told all you I'm gonna start killing flies around here, and I got myself one of these. If you don't have one, you're outdoors,
This thing's a lot of fun. Did you guys see those lightsaber skills? People are gonna start calling me Luke Skywalker. The real Luke Skywalker, the one from the 70s and 80s. Not the goofball that they got now. I'm actually probably more like Darth Vader, to be honest with you. All right, so where was I again? Oh yeah, we're talking about the smoke flavor. They're both gonna be equal. They both do a good job, and you have enough smoky flavor for a pellet grill. Again, remember, on a pellet grill, it's gonna be a little bit lighter smoky flavor. It's not like running charcoal or real wood. When you use real wood, that's what's gonna give you that ultimate smoky flavor. So the best way to explain a pellet grill smoke flavor, it's just cleaner. It's not so apparent. Apparent? Whatever. Mrs. Haraldson didn't teach me that word when we were kids. Thanks. Apparent. So like I was saying, it's not as apparent. I'm a parent. That's a dumb word. Okay, I'm just gonna use Wisconsin terminology. It's not as noticeable. Now let's talk about the overall cooking temperatures throughout the chamber itself. I'm gonna say that the Ryder, I can dial that in a little bit better. It's got 2 stacks, and how it cooks, it just seems that from side to side, there isn't this big of a temperature drop. On the pit boss, I can have about a 50 to 75 degree difference from left to right. It's okay to have a hot zone because sometimes you just want to finish things up. So sometimes you go ahead and put it on the right and it'll just get done a little bit quicker. But when you're trying to cook 6 racks of St. Louis ribs and get them all done at a certain time for one person, you got to do a lot of rotating. And when you're looking, you ain't cooking. So from my experience, it just seems to me that there's a little bit less rotation that you have to do on the Ryder DLX because that chamber is much closer in temperatures from left to right. Now another factor for me is the actual cooking temperatures of what that controller is saying and what it says in the pit itself. Both of them are not very good. On the Ryder DLX, if I want to run at 275 degrees, I set my temperature at 250 because it always seems that throughout the whole chamber that it's running about 25 to 35 degrees hotter. So that's why I always back it down just a bit. Now, as far as the pit boss goes, that I always had at least, like I say, 50 to 75 degree temperature swing from left to right. But once you learn your pit and how it runs, that's how you cook. That's why it's important to use like what I use, a Signals or an Ink Bird. You can check the description below if you want to buy one yourself. And then you just place those probes throughout the chamber on your first time cooking so you can kind of see where you're actually at. So I don't care what anybody says, you're never going to find a cooker that's going to completely cook at the temperature that you want it to, from up and down, left and right, and front and back. You're not going to find it. So you need to learn how your pit actually cooks. So for the overall cooking chamber itself, I'm gonna give it just slightly to the DLX. I really like the design of it and I really like how it cooks. I call it a war machine. You can get a lot of grub in this thing for sure. Now let's talk about grilling. And this is another area where I feel that the Ryder DLX is gonna outweigh the Pit Boss just because of that sear zone. Is it really practical to be grilling at high temps on a pellet grill? Not necessarily, but if you're looking for something that you can do both things on, low and slow and grilling, the Ryder DLX, because of that sear zone, you'll be able to accomplish it just a little bit easier. I've grilled burgers, I've grilled steaks, I've grilled pork chops, I've grilled everything in the Ryder DLX, and it's a lot easier to manage in that one compared to the Pit Boss. When I'm grilling with the Pit Boss, I'm using my grill grates. I turn it up to high, throw my grates in there, preheat them, and then I can grill right off from them. I don't even open up the sear zone on the Pit Boss at all. It's just more of a pain in the butt. As time has passed on, those slots on the Pit Boss have actually kind of got warped. There's not a tight fit anymore. So for grilling, I'm gonna give it to the Ryder DLX. It can get up to about 650 to 700 degrees, hands down, with ease. It's almost too hot, to be honest with you. Now for the actual startup and running of the cooker itself, I'm gonna give it to the Pit Boss. I just plug it in, turn it on. I don't care if my pellets are a month old, it's gonna run. And I also never had any problems and had to call customer service on my Pit Boss. I just plug it in and it runs. But now on my Ryder DLX, I've actually had to change out an igniter and a controller. But to Oklahoma Joe's defense, the Ryder DLX is a brand new concept of a cooker for them. They haven't been in the pellet game. They just got into it lately, and my Rider DLX was one of the first ones off the production line. Obviously, if you watched it before, you see that I had the sticker problem. They've changed that now. And I'm excited to see that Oklahoma Joe's in their R&D department is adjusting and changing things as this product has been released to the public. Now today's video is sponsored by Wines Till Sold Out, or WTSO. And over at WTSO's website, they get bottles across the world. And they got plenty of shopping options. They got last chance wines, weekly tasting, and premium selections. Now, if you use my promo code BBQ20, you're gonna save yourself $10 on any purchase of $50 or more. And that promo code lasts until December 31st, 2020. So what are you waiting for? Head over to WTSO's website and get your own bottle of wine. Wine and pellet grills pair up perfectly, trust me. I mean, you're gonna drink this while you're deciding what pellet grill you're gonna buy. It'll make your decision a lot easier. All right, let's open up this bottle. With all this talking, I'm getting thirsty. And now the moment that you all been waiting for. Oh, this pop was way better than the last video. In the last video, the pop was actually very bad, but that was user error. You saw. I pulled it harder this time. I wanted to make sure you all could hear it. All right, it's time to quench my thirst with this American Red from Prince and Pedro. Smells delicious, that's for sure. Wow, this is busting with flavor. I taste all kinds of berries in this one. Maybe that's why they say it's a mix of reds. Thank you, WTSO, for sending me these bottles of American Reds. I really appreciate it, and you just helped quench my thirst. Now I can go back to talking. Now, I've also been asked 100 times if I had my choice, and I went to Lowe's, and I could only have one of those two cookers because I know at Lowe's they have the Rider DLX and the Pit Boss 1100 right next to each other. Which one would I pick? Well, if I could only have one cooker and that's it, I would pick the Rider DLX because of that sear plate. And that's the only reason. But honestly, they're both great cookers. I am not a brand type of person. If they make a good cooker and I like it, I don't care what the nameplate says. I just want something to work. They both work with a little bit of hiccups in both of them. But if you really want to do both, grilling and smoking, the Rider DLX is just a little better option. F you, dead. Payback. And to be honest with you, this is a very hard video for me to do because I like both of these cookers. They both have so many great options and great things about them. But then they're still lacking in other areas. But I think you can say that about all the box store entry-level cookers that come out. They're good, but they're not great. So if you want great, you gotta pay a little bit more money. But to get going and start smoking in your backyard and making your own barbecue, both of them are gonna crush it. And I don't typically care either way, but if you want poly wheels, Pit Boss is gonna have it. But if you want it to look more like an old offset, well, the Rider's got those big old steel wagon wheels, and that's cool too. New game, barbecuers, pay attention to it. And if you do a sport like this, show me. I am here to amplify your backyard barbecue fun. I mean, come on, who's done this on video? Nobody. Only Racer. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become a subscriber. Turn on that notification bell because you don't want to miss my next video. I mean, I'm getting more cookers in. I know you don't want to miss that part, but I really appreciate you watching and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, another fly? Stay in here, land. Use the force, Luke. Come on, man, I gotta get one more kill so I can get to the next level. Isn't that what they do in video games? You know? Start putting a kill streak together. Oh, I'm gonna get a Charlie horse. No, think about this. This is mesmerizing. This is drawing you in. I mean, I can hear it already. Yeah! I wish I had like a frickin' files, right? Yeah, see? Got him! That was behind the back. Yeah! Frickin'! I just want to hit myself in the face. I just started the new thing in barbecue. Screw the one bite competitions. You gotta have a kill streak. You know, you gotta be like fly killer. You gotta pile them up like cordwood. You know, screw this other crap. Anybody can cook. Yeah! See, it's still sparking. He's dead.